went down with toe in the right side of his foot. I know it's a quick throw. I'm assuming someone stepped on his toe. It had to be because of the nature of the call that we had as far as offensive play call. So no matter what the situation is, no matter what happens with any player that gets hurt, man, we got to keep moving. This league is not going to stop just because of injuries.
Our Jets reporter Rich Cimini was at practice today, all in the middle of all of this. Rich, what more can you tell us about the Fields injury?
Well, it's crisis averted. The Jets got wet. There were a couple of scary moments for sure when he was limping off and getting loaded into that cart, which took him to the locker room. But soon after practice, the Jets were getting word from early testing that it is a dislocated toe. They released a statement saying it's not a significant injury. They do not expect him to miss significant time. In fact, they're calling him day to day. So this really could have been a lot worse. I know social media, Jet fans were in a panic state when this first happened around 9:30 this morning. They've had a number of fluky quarterback injuries in recent years. Most recently, Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago. So I'm sure Achilles was probably flashing in the minds of some fans. But the one thing that told me that it wasn't major was he got into the passenger seat of the cart. He wasn't laying in the back like you so often see athletes when they're taken out of the stadium. He was in the passenger seat, and he walked into the building under his own power. So that was the first sign that it was not a disaster, and the Jets later confirmed that it was not. He is day to day.
All right, thanks so much to Rich. I mean, what a roller coaster today, like Rich was saying, for Jets fans. We've got Lindsey Theory here. We've got Damian Woody, Mina Kimes as well. D. Wood, I felt bad for Jets fans at one point. I'm like, please help this to not be some terrible thing, and for Justin Fields. But if he ends up being okay, he may miss a little bit of time at camp. You heard Rich saying he's day-to-day. How much does that hamper this offensive install this summer?
I don't think it really hampers it at all, because you talk about a guy in Justin Fields who was there, you know, all throughout OTAs, mini camps. So he was taking a lot of reps this whole offseason. And Laura, you know, when you think about this Jets offense, they're going to build this thing around his athletic ability and that offensive line and that backfield. They're going to run the ball a ton. So, listen, as far as the passing game is concerned, he might miss a few days here and there, but this thing is going to be all about the running game.
Yeah, I agree. I think if he misses any time, my biggest concern is just that time is needed for their new offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrand, to figure out how to meld his offense, he comes from Detroit, with what Fields does best, because he's not going to come in and hit copy-paste on the Lions offense, ask Fields to go under center, throw over the middle of the field at that high play action rate. That's not who Justin Fields is as a quarterback. So they need this time, I think, for there to be sort of a meeting of the minds. But I'm with Damian. This whole thing starts in the backfield. And I do think there's case for optimism there, by the way. This Jets offensive line I view as ascending. Young players at tackle, of course. And then Fields himself just opens up things so much for that outside zone rushing attack because of his dual threat ability and threat to keep. But, of course, he can't do that if he's not healthy, so his health is paramount.
Yeah, the health rate, that's the biggest question. Toe injuries, Lindsey, have a lot of range in terms of impacting players. What have you learned from your time covering the league that may inform what we would see here?
I didn't think when I woke up this
morning,
I'd be talking about toes, but here we are. Joey Bosa, a couple years ago, I actually immediately thought of him because he fractured the left big toe on his foot, and he actually played through it. He had like a hard shell that he put on, and obviously at his position, that's one where you're going to have to push off and use that foot and that big toe. A different injury than what Justin Fields is dealing with, but that does tell you, if you're comparing toes to toes, that it might not all be bad here for Justin Fields as he tries to recover quickly and get back into practice.
I think anybody at home, not everybody at home is an elite athlete like Justin Fields, but we can all relate to like what it feels like if you hurt your toe. So we'll keep an eye on Justin Fields' toe. Let's look around the league as all 32 teams are in training camp. Look at Malik Neighbors. This is an incredible catch made, of course, at Giants camp. So keeping an eye on Neighbors, and they did name Russ the starting quarterback there yesterday. We have seen a good bit, though, of Jackson Dart as well. And how about Falcons camp? Michael Penix Jr. to Kyle Pitts. That's a connection that the Falcons are hoping continues to have great benefits for this offense. Getting Kyle Pitts to reach that full potential could be great for this offense. And then there's Aaron Rodgers, his first practice out there with the Steelers. He's getting ready to go, showing what he can do. And this was just moments ago. And in fact, right after this, he spoke with the media. So here's more from Aaron Rodgers after he just finished practice.
That he feels like this team is built to win a Super Bowl, to make a Super Bowl run. When you see the moves this organization has made, do you feel like this team is headed in that direction?
I think most of the 32 teams would probably say something to that accord. at this time of the year. But I think that there's really only 6 to 8 that really have a legitimate chance. Sometimes it's 10 to 12, and there's teams that surprise you, but I would say on paper we're probably one of those 10 to 12.
All right, so Lindsay, how much should we expect to see from Rodgers on the field this summer leading up to week 1?
Yeah, I'm told that he's expressed a willingness to play in the preseason, but they're really just playing it by ear. It's day 1 of practice. As you heard before, Mike Tomlin has said that he is a workaholic, but they want to do whatever they can to get him ready, whatever he feels he needs to get ready. That's what they're going to do. So there's no firm plan in place right now when it comes to looking ahead to the preseason games and exactly where they see Aaron Rodgers fitting into that.
Yeah, Damian, Rodgers' preferred style is much different, right, than the offenses that we've seen from Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, over the years. They know each other, though. How do you see these two meshing?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about an Aaron Rodgers style offense, it's very stoic. There's not a lot of motion. Everything is static and stuff like that. Whereas Arthur Smith, he wants to incorporate motions, different personnel groupings. So I do think there's been a meeting of the minds this offseason to kind of mesh the two systems together to ultimately make Aaron Rodgers feel as comfortable as possible. I think the one thing that you're going to see in this Steelers offense, you're going to see that 2 tight end personnel grouping a lot, because I think Aaron Rodgers throughout his career has had a lot of success with 2 tight ends on the field. Obviously, we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers trade for Jonnu Smith to go with Pat Freiermuth. I think that will be the personnel grouping that'll get cooking a lot in this situation.
I think you might see 3, by the way, with Darnell Washington as a blocker / kind of de facto offensive lineman. To me, the one thing that Rodgers and Arthur Smith should agree on is the importance of running the football. If this offense has Aaron Rodgers throwing it 30-plus times a game, I can tell you right now it's not going to be successful. They have to be a run-first team, and that's something that they've invested in, right? In the 3rd round of the draft this year, the Steelers took Caleb Johnson, who I think is a really good fit for Arthur Smith's outside zone run scheme. The interior of the offensive line has been excellent. They've drafted really well there. It's those tackles, I think, that could determine whether or not this is successful on the ground. Broderick Jones firmly entrenched on the left side. Troy Fautanu coming back from an injury season. That's where this thing sinks or swims, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that because Damian's on the show today, but I really feel like they got to run the ball better, and it starts with the young offensive line.
Yep. Yeah, well, listen, we like to play to the big men, but facts mean it either way. As we all know, Rodgers opens the season versus his former team in the Jets. The scriptwriter, conspiracy theorists are like, what is that? But I'm curious, how good is this Steelers team going to be? Are they one of the 8 teams that could win the Super Bowl in your mind?
I always say, when people ask me who are are they a Super Bowl contenders, I'll tell people every time, if you make the playoff, you have a chance. Okay. Coach always told us, if you make the tournament, you have an opportunity. I think the real key for the Pittsburgh Steelers is, Mina already touched on it, how well can they run the football and protect Aaron Rodgers? Again, you're asking a 42, soon to be 42-year-old quarterback to take you places that you don't see many 40-year-old quarterbacks go outside of Tom Brady. So they got to be able to establish a line of scrimmage in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think the challenging thing is I view them as the 3rd best team in their own division, right? I know Bengals have major issues on defense, but that should be a top 5 offense. So when you look at it from that point of view, you're competing with maybe the Broncos and the Chargers for a wild card spot. This is a team that obviously was in the postseason last year with up and down quarterback play, and that gives you some hope. But Aaron Rodgers isn't just a 40-plus old quarterback. He's a 40-plus old quarterback coming off of one of the worst seasons of his career, and that gives me a little bit of skepticism about the whole thing. Yeah,
it's worth noting the numbers in the last few seasons. Injury's been a mix there, but he has not been good. All right, we're just getting started on NFL Live. The offensive creativity in Dallas may change with new head coach Brian Schottenheimer. Find out why, even though he was in the building last year, this could be an entirely new Dallas offense. Could be exciting. Plus, Cincy on the hunt to start out fast in training camp. But will this Bengals offense be in first gear to start the year? We hear from Jamar Chase on what needs to be done next. NFL Live is brought to you by Disney Cruise Line, where magic meets the sea. Cruise sounds like fun. Should do that. The NFL's back-together weekend happening again Saturday. All 32 NFL teams practicing at their training camp sites. The NFL Live crew, we will be with you. We're going to have coverage from every single one of these camps. 9 a.m. to noon Eastern on ESPN, and then 1 to 3 on ABC. Back Together Weekend also available on the ESPN app and NFL Network. Can't wait to see you there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. All right, let's get to some top stories here as a couple major names still not at camp. We got Lindsay here for the latest. Get us started with Terry McLaurin out in Washington.
Laura, you mentioned Terry McLaurin still not at camp as he seeks a new deal, but Adam Peters says they've had some good conversations. Dan Quinn, on the other hand, saying that this is not something he's going to get too worked up about. This is the business side of football. Of course, they would like to see Terry McLaurin back in camp sooner rather than later.
And then how about Trey Hendrickson?
Trey Hendrickson still in Jacksonville, hanging out on the beach training for football, even though he's not at training camp. Obviously, he's holding out. He wants a new extension in Cincinnati. They got deals done for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. No update, or I should say no progress on a contract for Trey Hendrickson, so time ticks on in Cincinnati.
We're going to keep an eye on that for sure. Hendrickson led the league with 17.5 sacks last season. No other Bengal had more than 5. There's no doubt he is one of the best in the league. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals have started slow out of the gate. Burrow has won just 38% of his games in weeks 1 through 5, compared to winning almost 2/3 of his starts from week 6 on. His total QBR, touchdown to interception ratio, and yards per attempt are all significantly higher after he gets past week 5. The Bengals face the Browns and Jaguars in the first 2 weeks and then have to face Minnesota, Denver, and Detroit the following 3 weeks. Just significantly important to get those first couple wins. New on NFL Live, All-Pro wideout Jamar Chase has high expectations for the season, including a fast start.
Win the division first. That's how we do it all every year. Win the first game. And that's how we're going to make a mark.
All right. Lindsay, what more can you tell us about Zach Taylor's preseason plan that may help him start a little bit faster?
So they want to get going a lot faster, right? So Joe Burrow is actually planning to play more in the preseason than he ever has before. Exactly how much that is, Zach Taylor hasn't said, but it's more than it's been in the past. And this is really interesting, Laura, because there's 2 kind of schools of thought now. You either play your starters in the preseason or you don't, right? Do you wrap your quarterback in bubble wrap or keep them out there in the fire? And I know Zach Taylor coming up under Sean McVay, he saw both sides work. In 2017, Sean McVay played all of his starters, and that offense was absolutely humming. In 2018, he didn't play his starters, and they went to the Super Bowl. So there's no exact science to this, and it seems like Zach Taylor is really trying to figure out what works best to get them going fast.
Yeah, Lindsay makes a really good point bringing up the Rams example, because there's really no one-size-fits-all answer to this. We always have this discussion in the preseason. Should you play your starters? Does it work? And my answer is always, it depends on the preference of the player. I know when I watch Patrick Mahomes in the preseason, and he does play in the preseason, I'm always like covering half of my face because I can barely stand to see him. It makes me so nervous, but clearly that has worked for him. Tom Brady sometimes played in the preseason. In my opinion, it really comes down to the personal preference of Joe Burrow. If he feels like he needs it to get a faster start, if he wants to build that chemistry early on, I don't know if it's chemistry at this point, they played together a long time, then more power to him. And, obviously that comes with a little bit of risk, but it's football. There's going to be risk, and I feel like ultimately it's up to the player.
Whatever they've been doing, it ain't working. so listen, obviously we've talked about, Patrick Mahomes playing in preseason. The other guys have been bubble wrapped. And so I think, it seemed like Joe Burrow is kind of taking the bull by the horns here and saying, you know what? I need to change my approach to how I get prepared for the season. Yeah. And if that means playing more in the preseason, so be it. If Joe Burrow's going to be out there, guess who else is going to be out there? All the other starters are going to be out there as well.
Yeah, let's look back at that schedule, the way they begin the season, because we mentioned the Browns and Jags, but then they see Minnesota. Let me go back to this. Detroit. Oh, there it is. They've got Denver. They're going to be a great team. The Vikings before that, Lions, Packers. I mean, D-Wood, when you see all that, how important is it to get off to a good start?
Laura, you better come out the gate 2-0.
Yeah.
You better come out the gate 2-0, because that right there, I mean, listen, the Cincinnati Bengals can score with anyone, but when you look at Denver, Lions, Vikings, Packers, that's the creme de la creme right there. So you need to come out of the gates, come out of the blocks fast.
Yeah, all the 3 of those defenses were in my top 10 defenses ranking this offseason. Denver, I had as the #1 defense in the NFL. We know what Minnesota has been. So that is quite the gauntlet. And I think for Cincinnati, you know, you're looking at like the other side of the ball every week, especially with all the questions with Trey Hendrickson in the pass rush, and wondering, do I have to put up 40 points, you know, in these games? Some of them, yeah, and that is daunting on its own.
Yeah, the Bengals had the 3rd best offense in the NFL from week 9 on last season, but we all know that was not the problem. It was the defense. All right, still ahead. The defending Super Bowl champions are flying high and have landed in camp. Like what we did there, questions are soaring around this defense. Can their young talent take them to new heights? Woody thinks so. Stay tuned. A lot of bird references there. I like that. Very clever. You didn't laugh, though, D. Wood.
You know what?
I'm not as funny as I think I am.
No, maybe I was just slow to it, but it was clever.
New on NFL Live. Look at this. George Pickens doing George Pickens things. One-handed catch from Dak Prescott. I mean, that's just silly. That thing just sticks in his hand. Are you serious? Uh-oh. Cowboys hype train getting going. Dak Prescott, by the way, is going to speak in just a little bit. As soon as we hear from him, we will bring that to you right here on NFL Live, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's read and react, although I didn't want to cut away from that video. That was pretty impressive.
That was pretty sweet.
Woo! Let's talk from some sound of camp around this week. It feels like every August there's buzz about a breakout season for Kyle Pitts. We were just talking about it in the break, D. Wood. Second-year quarterback Michael Penix Jr. already has his sights set on his star tight end.
I can't beat the ball today. There's going to be a lot of that.
D-Wood, is this finally the year that we see Pitts reach his very high potential? I want to know. Fantasy owners want to know. Go ahead.
I mean, if not now, then when? He's literally in the last year of his rookie contract. And the one thing about Kyle Pitts, he's been underutilized ever since that rookie year where you thought, oh, man, this guy's going to be the next generation tight end. You know, he just hasn't had the type of numbers, and I know he's been dealing with injuries, but when you got a strong-armed, you know, accurate quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., you got to find creative ways to get him, you know, create mismatches with this guy because he's a great athlete. So the coaching staff down there has to find ways to take advantage of that advantage.
And you just hope he stays healthy. I mean, that's been one of the big reasons. By the way, Pitt's averaging just 20 receiving yards per game from week 9 on last season. Michael Penix Jr. going to look a whole lot better if Pitt steps up as well. All right, let's go to Carolina next, where head coach Dave Canales thinks Bryce Young will have a very talented group of wideouts to throw to this fall.
I think that the sky's the limit for this group. You know, I think that this is going to be a very competitive team. I don't think people are going to want to play us by the style of football that we play. I'm expecting that. My expectations are really high for this group. They are every year, you know, and we're going to shoot for as good as we can get. My language to the group is I want to make sure we maximize the talent in this room. That'll take us as far as we need to go, but that's going to be our focus.
Mina, what do you think about the Panthers wide receiver room?
First, I think that was really a lot of coach speak. I think that they're interesting. I think there's a lot of upside. Y'all know I really like the Ted McMillan pick. I like what he brings to the Bryce Young on third down, contested catch ability, outside the numbers. Jalen Coker showed promise last year. Adam Thielen remains productive. Xavier Legette gives you downfield threat. I think if I have a question, it's really about who can win quickly and get you yards after the catch. And along those lines, kind of intrigued by Hunter Renfrow back in the NFL. Just going to throw that out there. You know, he was out for a couple seasons with an illness because hypothetically he brings the skill set that I actually think they're missing. But, of course, we're going to have to see him on the field before we arrive at a judgment on him.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, he's familiar with the area, Clemson guy. It's good stuff. By the way, seeing Teterow and McMillan out there, it just reminds you his size, how much of a matchup problem he's going to be for defenses. Yeah. I love it. All right, let's go to Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy will be the third quarterback in 3 seasons for the Vikings. Our Lindsay caught up with Justin Jefferson, asked him about another offseason of change.
And it is caught! Touchdown! Let's go! A 97-yard touchdown from Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson.
How do you hit that reset button when you and Sam Darnold had a lot of success together, and then there's a change made, and now there is JJ, who has a lot of accolades coming in, but he's a new quarterback for you?
Yeah, it's a tough reset button, but you got to push it. It's something that I had to do with Kurt, you know, transitioning to Sam. And the same thing from Sam to JJ. You just got to embrace it because it is going to be a challenge, you know, being with a new person. They're learning your moves, you're learning theirs.
To the end zone! Touchdown!
What can you do to help JJ's job be easier as he makes that transition?
Catch the ball. Whenever it comes, catch it. That's the confidence booster for him. He's still new to the system. You know, this is his first real year playing with us. So it's just all about, you know, just staying in his ear, making sure that he still has that confidence to go out there and sling the rock like he can.
It's like that 4th and 18. Just throw it up, you'll go get it.
And I'm gonna go get it.
He caught it! What a grab!
I love it. Great convo. Lindsay, what more can you tell us about your time with Jefferson?
Yeah, Justin was incredibly honest, and that probably sounds a little silly to say, but a lot of the time players will say, oh, it's just next man up when it's a new quarterback. But he was really reflective of what their last season was like, right? The Vikings last year were picked to finish last in the division, and then with Sam Darnold at quarterback, were able to achieve what they did in going to the postseason. So that reset button is even harder than it was when he had to hit it with Kirk Cousins. And he really emphasized with his new quarterback, with J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be so important for his teammates to help build confidence. And Justin told me, obviously you heard, catch the football. That is going to help J.J. build the most confidence because not only is he battling, he's not a rookie, but he's a first-time starter. Right. He's also coming off an injury. So he has two things that could be in the back of his head that could make it challenging, but the confidence that his teammates can provide is really going to be key.
I love it. Mina, you heard him talking about hitting the reset button again, playing with another new quarterback. Are you concerned about that at all?
Not for Justin Jefferson. I mean, Lindsay could be thrown to him. He'd probably put up 70 yards a game. He's like as close as quarterback proof as it gets in this league. But as far as maximizing his ability with JJ and not falling back from last year, you know, I think it depends on McCarthy, obviously. But there's a few things you want to see him improve upon from college. He's got a strong arm. He's really willing to attack the middle of the field, which is, I think, a big part of why Kevin O'Connell liked him. But I would like to see him improve some of his layered throws, throw with a little bit more touch. That's a big part of the Vikings offense, and Justin Jefferson's a big beneficiary of that. Look, he can catch anything thrown his way, but the ball's got to get within his vicinity. And I think whether or not McCarthy can improve some of those touch throws could go a long way towards determining what kind of relationship they have.
Yeah, the Vikings ranked 10th in points per game over the last 5 seasons, and some of that has to do with the great receiving corps they've had. Justin Jefferson will score some points. All right, there were some big changes on Philly's defense this offseason. Get the Liberty Bell in here. We're ready to go talking about the defending Super Bowl champs. The Eagles re-signed All-Pro linebacker Zach Bond to a 3-year, $51 million contract. Bond racked up 151 tackles, 11 of those for a loss, and forced 5 fumbles last season. They had some big-time departures. Milton Williams went to the Patriots, Josh Sweat to the Cardinals, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was traded to the Texans, and Brandon Graham retired. So some new guys are going to have to step up, like rookie linebacker Jihad Campbell and safety Andrew Makuba. Defensive coordinator Vic Fangio talked about all the new faces in Philly.
Yeah, we have a lot of battles going on for starting jobs in the different packages. We got some good players battling for it, and it will be interesting. If you ask me to predict who's winning those jobs right now, it's a guess.
That's the biggest thing. You know, everybody, you know, we talk about, you know, competing every single day. You know, and people know those positions that are open, and you know, those guys are. Everybody's out here competing, you know, to keep their job, you know, to take over a job, you know, whatever it may be.
D-Wood, how big a deal is all this changeover on the Eagles defense?
Well, I mean, listen, when you got guys that graduated from the program, moved on to different things, you know, it's always going to be interesting to see how these new fellows integrate into the offense. But when you're the Philadelphia Eagles and you got Vic Fangio, one of the all-time great assistant coaches that you have, you know, my stress levels as far as this is concerned is minimal. We saw last year, they had 2 rookies in their secondary last year, and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And you're talking about at the end of the year, the Philadelphia Eagles arguably had the best pass defense in the National Football League. So I know that Vic Fangio is going to have these young guys ready to go. So I don't really worry about it much at all.
I just want to point something out here. Those green highlighted players, 10 out of 11 of these players in this defense were drafted by the Eagles. It just speaks to how well they have drafted and that pipeline they've created in their development. Go ahead, Mina.
Well, speaking of how well they draft, Jahad Campbell's already practicing. Just to remind folks, my belief was that he was a top 10 draft pick, worthy of a top 10 pick, and that he fell because of concerns about his injury. The fact that he's already practicing is enormous for Philadelphia because I really view him as a dream fit in Vic Fangio's defense. His skill set actually does remind me a bit of Zach Bonds in terms of he's a plus pass rusher. He has that sideline to sideline range, allowing him to chase down running backs, the versatility to drop into coverage as well as the wingspan. And now he gets to play next to Zach Bond and learn from him. And I mean, I just love that pick, and I love the player. So the fact that I just want to him practicing is huge. He seems to be way ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And I think as a result, the Eagles defense will be too.
Yeah, Mina, so is there any concern?
I mean, I think pass rush is the thing that I would point to.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of pass rush snaps walking out the door. Losing Josh Sweat is no joke. You need somebody opposite Nolan Smith to step up.
Yeah. All right. By the way, the Eagles are going to be tested early. Their first 4 games come against Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, and Bucks. So some good offenses they'll have to face. Coming up, Baltimore's secondary, a rare weak spot last season, but with several new faces in the building. Now, how good can this unit actually be? Mina believes this defense could be one of the best in the NFL. That's next. New on NFL Live, we just got one-handers galore today. We saw George Pickens to start the block. And how about for the Bears? That's DeAndre Swift. That one-handed catch, it was like, what, D-Wood, 3 feet ahead of him? Am I exaggerating?
I mean, this stuff is becoming routine now. All these guys are doing.
This makes me really excited for real football. We're almost there, folks. We'll be right back. New on NFL Live, Aaron Rodgers' first pass of camp was an interception, but something that doesn't particularly worry the 41-year-old quarterback.
It's good to get that out the way. It's good to get it out the way. I mean, anybody that's watched me practice over the years, you know, you like to try certain throws at certain times. And anybody that's watched me in the games knows I've been pretty stellar taking care of the football over the years. So there's going to be picks for sure. I'm going to try to fit certain things in. You know, you got to deal with some sweat on the ball from time to time. So it's going to be a good challenge for me throwing this heat every single day. I look forward to it, but I'm going to throw some picks. But I'm going to throw some touchdowns, too.
You know, when in Rome, he's going to be Roman. And it's our job to, you know, teach him how we do things. But not only him, guys like Jalen Ramsey and others, man, we got a lot of new significant players. As a coach, I embrace that challenge of educating them not only about the things that we value, but how we go about our business here. They all been really receptive to it.
Now I'm kind of curious about who picked off Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Brooke Pryor can tell us. She was there. It's like, welcome to the team. I'm going to pick you off. All right, Brooke, what did you see from Rodgers at this first full day of camp?
Laura, that was Patrick Queen that picked off Aaron Rodgers on his first throw of his first ever team period as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And the 2 things I noticed about that were, 1, the reaction of the crowd. There were a couple thousand people here, and there was a collective, ooh. And 2 is that Patrick Queen and the defensive players did not do their normal celebration when they pick off a quarterback in practice. Usually they throw the ball up and they pretend that they're skeet shooting it. They did not do that this time. Maybe don't want to put salt in the wound of their new starting quarterback on the very first play of the very first team period. But look, it was kind of a rocky first day for Aaron Rodgers because not only did he have that first interception, but he was also only 1 of 3 on passes attempted to DK Metcalf. But Rodgers didn't sound too worried about it, and DK Metcalf didn't sound too worried about it because those 2 have had 2 individual training sessions, 1 before Aaron Rodgers signed and 1 since. Plus, there was the group workout in Malibu. And DK said he's not really worried about a timetable for when the 2 of them are going to end up being on the same page. And one thing that might help expedite that chemistry building, those 2 are suite mates here in Rooney Hall. They share a bathroom, and DK told me he thought that he was going to get to have his own room, and he heard a knock at the door. He went to his front door. Turned out it was Aaron Rodgers knocking on the door of their adjoining bathroom. So sounds like they're, you know, getting to know each other so they get to talk through things, how they see it. And he thought maybe Aaron Rodgers would play video games with him because the other night Rodgers walked into his room and said, video games, huh? And DK said, yeah. And then Rodgers just turned around and walked out of the room. So maybe he'll pick up the sticks next time. He's just getting a lay of the land.
This is incredible. This is reporting we only get from Brooke Pryor. She's all over all of it. I absolutely love it. Sharing a bathroom, that's one way to get really close with somebody. Could be good, could be bad. I don't know. Overall, by the way, ESPN Analytics has, thanks, Brooke, the Steelers projected for 8.4 wins this season. If they aren't able to get to 9 wins, it would be their first losing season since 2003. They have a 40% chance to make the playoffs. Pittsburgh seeking their first playoff win since 2016, and they have just a 16% chance to win the AFC North, which they haven't done since 2020. We're going to stay in that division. This is a large reason why it's difficult potentially if you look at the Steelers forecast. The Ravens defense drastically improved throughout last season. In weeks 1 through 10, they allowed 25 points per game, which ranked 25th in the NFL. From then on, they allowed just 15 points per game, which was the best in the NFL. Their last 4 games, extra special, allowing just 11 points on average. This included holding the Texans to just 2 points on Christmas Day. In the offseason, they added Jair Alexander, who had some fun with Lamar Jackson at practice today. Former college teammates, remember?
Oh, Lamar, yeah. Yeah, he threw a back shoulder. He tried to throw a back shoulder on me with D-Hop, so, I had to give him a little jazz about that. I said, come on, man. I know it's my first day, but, man, it's still me. You know what I'm saying? It's still me. So, but, it's always fun, man. We can joke like that.
I don't even know what that exactly meant, but I love it. D-Wood, what do you expect from this Ravens defense?
To be very multiple, to run a lot of simulated pressure. And what we saw from the Baltimore Ravens defense last year, when they moved Kyle Hamilton back to the kind of center field position, that's when they really started to stabilize the secondary, because the secondary was a real big problem for the Baltimore Ravens. Now you go out in the first round, you add Malachi Starks, a rangy playmaking type of safety out of the University of Georgia. And what you can do with both of those guys is now you can really mix things up. The disguises and the coverages on the back end, that'll make Baltimore even that much harder to decipher if you're an opposing offense.
I think this will be one of the best defenses in the NFL, flat out. When you look at the rankings over the course of the season, they're super misleading. Damian, you alluded to this, Laura as well. In the second half of the season, after they made the safety change we talked about, they were first in EPA per play, first in success rate, first in points per game. And they addressed what I honestly will say was their biggest weakness, which was cornerback position opposite Nate Wiggins. Brandon Stevens out, Jair Alexander in. Even if he's not healthy, you have Wouzier there, so you have some depth. I expect this defense to be even better than they were last season, especially with Zach Orr, their defensive coordinator, and some more experience under his belt. He can continue growing with them. So I'm very, very high on this unit. And, of course, they get to play complementary football and have the benefit of playing with one of the best offenses in the NFL, too.
Yeah, it's a great point. I agree they're improved. But, Mina, check out the schedule. At the Bills, the Browns, Lions, at the Chiefs, Texans, and Rams. That's how they start off. That defense started slow last year. They got to be really good out the gates, right?
Yeah, I think the Bills will test them immediately with the run game, because if there is one thing I'm worried about with this Ravens defense, the loss of Michael Pierce, their nose tackle. Don't sleep on that. And the Bills have a very physical downhill rushing attack.
All right, great stuff. Let's go back to a developing story today. Justin Fields at Jets camp. He was carted off of the practice field, an apparent lower leg injury. That's from Adam Schefter earlier today, but Lindsay is here with more. So, Lindsay, what more can you tell us about Justin Fields' injury and his status now?
Sure, Justin Fields carted off, but not nearly as serious as one might have thought initially. It is a dislocated right toe for Justin Fields. He's going to be day-to-day, likely will miss a little bit of time in training camp, but they fully anticipate that he'll be ready to go week 1. So that, like Rich Cimini said today earlier, the front seat of the cart was a big sign that it wasn't as serious as maybe it initially looked, but he was stepped on. That toe is dislocated, so day-to-day situation for Justin Fields.
Well, keep an eye on it. Listen, I'm relieved for Jets fans and for Justin Fields. It doesn't seem to be super serious, but as we talked about, the run game going to be huge in that offense. Fields also known for his legs. His 10 touchdowns on scrambles since 2021 are the second most in the NFL behind Josh Allen. You hope that toe doesn't hold him back. All right, still to come. Dak Prescott in this offense will be must-see TV with new head coach Brian Schottenheimer's offensive adjustments. We'll hear from Dak on the new offensive approach next. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of Dallas, by the way, we're going to check in on their camp. Some impromptu dance moves broke out, and we got some horses here in the studio to join right in. I don't know why I had to go into that accent, but it felt like it was necessary. D-Wood, should we get on one of these little horses? What are we doing? Give me one of those things.
I'm not trying to break a horse back.
Where is that? Yeehaw! Giddy up! Oh, wait, that was a bad angle. I'm going to go this way. We'll see you in a minute. Lindsay, you want to try? No! ESPN Fantasy Football, the #1 fantasy game, and the season is right around the corner. So download the ESPN Fantasy app to play or sign up now and get your league started at ESPN.com/fantasyfootball. Don't miss out, people. Get it going. All right, let's talk Cowboys here on NFL Live. The story has been the talks around Micah Parsons' contract, the back and forth between Jerry Jones and Micah. But what about the offense? Some of the changes Brian Schottenheimer wants to implement. Here he is with more.
Really good linebackers and really good defenses that communicate well, there's tells. So when you shift or change the picture or you motion, it helps disguise that a little bit. And then, of course, when you're using your motions, they're very different. Your motions make them adjust on the run. Shifts, they generally can, what we say, reload the front. So if you shift, the defense can reload. But when you motion, they can't because you're snapping the ball on the run. So we have those. We like those. Right now we're playing around with some of the ones that we believe that we'll use. But we change them up pretty regularly.
We love to hear it because using motion was not the Cowboys' specialty last season. They used motion on 55% of their plays, which was the 18th highest rate in the NFL. They had 16 touchdowns when using motion, which was tied for the 5th fewest, and they ranked bottom 10 in yards per play. Dak Prescott threw 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions when the Cowboys used motion last season. So we'll look to improve on that. But Damian, just how different do you expect this Cowboys offense to look with Schottenheimer now in charge? It's worth remembering he was on the staff before, but just didn't have this level of control. Right?
Yeah, he was actually my former offensive coordinator when I was with the New York Jets. And the one thing we did a ton of was shifts, motions, and things that Brian Schottenheimer did. That's going to be a departure from Mike McCarthy, who preferred more of kind of static type of formations. And so what like what Schotty talked about here, what that does is force communication with the defense and ultimately puts your guys in better leverage points. And so I think we're going to see a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, a lot of pistol, shotgun, all those type of things to try to give this Dallas Cowboys offense the advantage.
Would be terrific for a player like CeeDee Lamb, who can win from multiple alignments to defenses. Really are going to show their hand when you move him around the formation because he is such a focal point. And then, oh, by the way, there's George Pickens there as well. I'm interested in seeing it in part because I would say I don't think we really know who Brian Schottenheimer is as a play caller in 2025. That was not his offense last year. And then people go back to Seattle, where he was the offensive coordinator, sort of the architect of the Let Russ Cook movement. You guys remember that? And then folks remember they veered away from it and they stopped throwing as much on early downs and leaned into the run game. That, to me, was really the influence of Pete Carroll. So who, like Schottenheimer, is how pass-heavy he wants to be. I think that remains to be seen. And look, he's got as good a set of weapons as nearly everyone in the NFL. So he certainly is given the opportunity here to do something interesting with this passing attack.
Damian already hit on it, but Dak Prescott over the offseason, really after the OTA program, expressed a lot of optimism and excitement about this because he says it really provides his playmakers the ability to get open in space, which we see a lot of faster offenses doing these days. And then going into the Cowboys training camp, this also was really apparent to me. A year ago at this time, this offense looked like a mess, and it was very clear that the Cowboys weren't going to actually achieve what they wanted to. And I know they were without CeeDee Lamb. I will be in Oxnard on Saturday to see this offense and what it looks like. The first real test for this group, though, will be when they have the Rams for joint practice to kind of test out this new offense and see what they're liking under
When does that happen?
August 5th.
August 5th. Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I think as much as we talk about CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, I think, the Dallas Cowboys traditionally have been in their best when they're able to run the football. And I look at Brian Schottenheimer. Who's his dad? Marty. Hey. Marty Ball. And so I think that element is he's going to reintroduce that back to the Dallas Cowboys, be able to establish the line of scrimmage because ultimately within that your own division, you got two of the best rushing offenses in the league, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders.
Look at this, Mina, their schedule. They obviously open at the Eagles. That's a monster of a game. The Giants and at the Bears, Packers at the Jets, Panthers. There's some defenses in there at least, right, that might make you worry a little bit.
I think Damian's point about them running the ball is really important those first 2 weeks because the Eagles have one of the best pass defenses in football. Giants have one of the best pass rushing defensive lines in football. You got to be able to take pressure off the quarterback by running the ball. And I think they're going to have opportunities to run the ball. Defenses are going to play a ton of too high coverage because of these two wide receivers. They're going to get light boxes. Can this offensive line assert themselves in the line of scrimmage when given those favorable looks? That, to me, is going to go a long way towards determining how successful this offense is.
All right, so that's the offense, but we can't talk about the Cowboys and not talk about Micah Parsons right now. So what is the latest with Micah Parsons, his contract talks, and everything Jerry Jones has said?
Micah Parsons remains at Cowboys camp. He's holding tackling dummies. He's being a good teammate. He's not actually doing any of the tackling or hitting out there because he's not going to practice. There is still a contract that he needs. Those discussions are not ongoing, right? Jerry Jones has mentioned that he hasn't really even talked with his agent about this. As we all know, though, Jerry Jones does tend to get things done. There's a circus involved before it gets done. But right now, that thing is still status quo, no contract.
All right, we're going to be asking you about this on Saturday during our Back Together week and all of our broadcasts. All right, time for one more thing before we go. Andy Reid described what his tight end, Travis Kelce, looks like entering year 13.
Yeah, he's svelte right now. It looks like he's 20. He's doing a good job. He's in great shape.
Svelte. I was going to ask you what it meant, but the definition was on the screen there. But if you didn't read it, D. Wood, what do you think svelte means?
That means he's lost weight. That's what it means. You know, I need to apply that myself a little bit.
No,
you know?
you look great. I don't want to hear that.
But listen, as you get older, that's what you do. You got to lose some weight, give a little more extra pep to your step.
Well, okay, I looked it up, and my definition said slender and elegant. Elegant was like an interesting.
It's the new hair.
Well, he can dress though. That boy can dress now. He can dress.
You like that style?
I think that sounds like
his haircut. He need to get back to his old haircut.
Yeah,
but he can style. He can style.
I love it. Mina, we only have 10 more seconds, so I'm just not going to have you comment on svelte, but we know your thoughts, okay? We'll see you tomorrow on NFL Live.